for taking a half an hour out of your life to learn some things about your health and how your body works. The reason I do these talks is because I want you to understand how your body works and why people get sick on a much deeper level than the average American understands that. That's why I do these talks, to help you understand how you can help yourself, what may be happening to you, and what you can do about it. So tonight's talk is on, it's more of on a functional medicine topic. It's about toxicity. How many of you believe that we have toxicity in our environment? Yeah. Everybody should raise their hand. Yeah, we have a lot of it. Okay. So if you look at, you know, it always helps when you put this thing in. Okay. So if you look at chemical and metal toxicities, probably one of the most overlooked health issues in America. Chemical toxicity is rarely ever tested for in people. And, you know, if you have an overload, let's say of mercury or lead in your body, you know, how many pharmaceuticals are going to fix that? None, okay? If you have an overload of any toxic chemical, in fact, pharmaceuticals are toxic in and of themselves. So these aren't tested. I test for them here in my office, and we'll talk about that a little later. I want you to look at these two researchers. They really kind of broke open in many ways some of the problems with chemical toxicity in our culture. Their names are Anna Soto and Carla Sonnenschein, and they were PhD researchers in 1987 at Tufts University in Boston, and they were working with breast cancer cells and cancer, and they were trying to figure out some things about why breast cancer proliferated, what stopped it, what were the things that stopped these cells from multiplying. And it's a known fact that breast and uterine cells proliferate under the influence of estrogen. Estrogen is a cell growth stimulator. And so for some reason, and they didn't understand this, in their control vials, one day they came in and they found out these breast cancer cells, these breast tissue cells were growing wildly like cancer. And they were incredibly careful in their lab to not contaminate things. They the only ones that were handling them were the two of them. They were keeping the estrogen in another lab locked down. I mean, they were incredibly careful. And they came in and they found out these cultures were growing like crazy, and it took them 2 years to figure out that what had happened is that Corning Labs had changed the composition of the plastic tubes. And they added a chemical called p-nonylphenol, which is from a family of synthetic chemicals called alkyl phenols, which added to polystyrene and PVC to make them more stable and less breakable. Okay, that's what they found. So 4-nonylphenol is typical of a common chemical toxin that triggers breast cancer. Okay, and this is the kind of chemical that we're finding in there. They're used in manufacturing antioxidants, lubricant oils, additives, laundry and dish detergent, okay, and emulsifiers. 4-nonylphenol binds to estrogen receptors in breast tissue, which increases the risk for breast cancer. So how many, if you come back here, how many of us are, exposed to this stuff all the time? Yeah. You wonder why breast cancer is such an issue? And this is back in 1987. That was the year that I started practicing in Hastings. And we didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have any, access to the information that we had now. So nobody knew about this, And so these two scientists learned that the breakdown of chemicals found in industrial detergents, pesticides, and personal care products, meaning makeup and hairspray and all of that, can likewise give rise to nonylphenol. Okay? By the late 1980s, several European countries had already banned the use of alkyl phenols in household cleaners, and similar restrictions were under consideration in other countries as well. Okay? At the same time, this was happening in Boston, at Stanford University out in California. Researchers were discovering another estrogenic compound was messing with their testing, and it was called bisphenol A, which was leaching from polycarbonate. Okay, bisphenol A is ubiquitous in plastics. Okay, so we try and get bisphenol A free plastics to carry stuff around.
Is that what BPA is?
Yeah, BPA.
Okay.
That's what BPA is, BPA free. But now they got BPF and BPD, which is bad or worse than BPA. Okay. So they put this in plastics to make it more durable. Okay. I mean, you find this in in baby bottles. So babies are getting this. Okay. So the Stanford University team found that bisphenol A had an estrogenic effect in cells at a concentration of 2 to 5 parts per billion. You don't need very much to create that, to create an estrogenic effect. So BPAs or bisphenols are 100 times more toxic than we've been led to believe for the developing fetus. Okay? Risks are largely unrecognized, have significant negative effects on developing male fetus from 6.5 to 14 weeks. So, how do pregnant women ever get tested for this? No, they don't. Should they? Yeah. You're going to get pregnant. You're pregnant. You should be tested for these things in the body, and it's easy to test for them. I'll talk about that a little later on here in the talk. So I'm going to talk about 7 ways that plastics damage the body. Now, here's the thing. I understand this, that we cannot avoid plastics. We can't get away from it. When you go to the store, everything you buy is in plastics. So we're going to talk about ways that you can mitigate this in your body here in just a little bit. But at least understand how plastics damage the body. So number 1 is it damages DHA, which is the fatty acid that's really important for brain function. So when you take like my product called my fish oil, the tuna omega has a good amount of DHA in it, and DHA and EPA. So DHA is the foundation for brain health, including memory and recall. So many people have problems with that. Doggone it, sometimes I have problems with it, if you want to know the truth, And so, so phthalates in plastics damage that. Phthalates can create a zinc deficiency, which compromises, and I see zinc deficiency all the time in my office, okay? Low alkaline phos on a blood test, zinc deficiency, okay? So it compromises vitamin A, vitamin B6, which can lead to things like depression, heart disease, indigestion, cancer, diabetes, and accelerated aging. Now, that doesn't mean that, if you're exposed to phthalates, you're going to get all of this, but I mean, what's one of the number 1 drugs in our culture is antidepressants. How many people have heart disease? I mean, heart disease and cancer kill the 2 biggest disease killers there are. Diabetes is like number 5, So it's a big deal, all right? Phthalates have been found responsible for damaging the pancreas, leading to diabetes and insulin resistance. I see it all the time in practice, okay? High levels of A1C and insulin, fasting insulin. Phthalates damage hormone function. This is kind of what we're concentrating on this evening, especially thyroid and testosterone. So how many people you know have thyroid problems, take thyroid hormones? Yeah, lots of them, okay? How many men have testosterone issues? Like these low T clinics are popping up like mushrooms, okay? You know, in 1980, when I got into practice, you didn't see, there weren't any low T. I mean, you didn't see commercials about that on TV. Nobody would have thought about putting a commercial like that. Now there's clinics all over the place. Phthalates can poison what are called peroxisomes, which control the chemistry of cholesterol. Now your brain is about 12% cholesterol. And cholesterol is really important for neurotransmitter function in the brain. So phthalates can mess with that whole mechanism, as well as can cholesterol-lowering drugs, which I absolutely hate those drugs for that. That's one of the reasons, okay? And phthalates can damage the body's ability to make a chemical called catalase. Now, catalase is essential for controlling the spread of cancer cells. So what happens is that, you know, when people get chemotherapy and their cancer goes into remission, but then, you know, months or a year later it bounces back, it's because they don't have enough catalase, okay? And so phthalates can damage the body's ability to make that. So it's good, you know, again, we're going to talk about how to mitigate this. So not all synthetic chemicals that disrupt hormones act as estrogens. There's a lot of these synthetic estrogenic chemicals block the androgen or testosterone receptors in men. And there's some fungicides in this category, which are used a lot. You know, 35% of the food consumed in the United States has detectable pesticide residue. And the analytical methods that we use for food detect only 1/3 to 1/2 of the more than 600 different chemicals in food. So, I mean, again, that's an issue. Now, one researcher, Earl Grey, and that's not of the Earl Grey tea fan, okay? So you know that. Not the same guy, okay? He found that DDE, which is from DDT, which hasn't been used for decades in our country, is ubiquitous in our body fat. So these chemicals stay around for a long time. It's a potent androgen blocker equal in power to flutamide, which is a drug designed to block the receptor for male hormones that is used in treating prostate cancer. Now now I know that I don't expect you guys to understand and know organic chemistry, but this is what DDE looks like. And that does not look like testosterone at all, but that blocks testosterone. Just like a lot of these chemicals that imitate estrogen in the body. If you look at what estrogen looks like and what they don't look at all similar, yet they work like estrogen, and we don't really understand why that is. Very low doses of chemicals such as DDT, PCB, dioxin, lindane, ketone, and atrazine have profound long-term effects of those exposed in the womb. So plummeting sperm counts. We have 25% of the sperm count now that we had in 1925. Now that's stunning when you think about it. I mean, you talk about, you know, population decline or population control. It enlarges prostates, breast cancer, increases the overall exposure. And what happens is when you're exposed to this stuff, you know, when you're developing fetus, it actually imprints a process that sensitizes a woman to estrogen, so they're a lot more sensitive to it, you know, when they get older. These things can impair learning ability, can cause permanent changes in behavior such as hyperactivity, and they affect the thyroid in ways that we don't totally understand. Normal thyroid is crucial for normal brain development. So, you know, in a developing fetus, when the thyroid is developing, it actually affects the development of the brain. And so the two are very important. So if you affect the thyroid development in a growing fetus, that can affect brain development. So how many kids do we have now that are autistic? At 1 in every, what, 66? You know?
A lot of them.
And I've said this before, and you know, so you probably heard me say it. If you look in my neurology textbook that I use in chiropractic college, written by a neurologist back in 1978, you won't even find the word autism in there. It's not in that textbook. Now we have, every family seems to have an autistic kid. So this is a big deal, and we need to at least get a handle on it. So industrial chemicals, I'm going to go through this pretty fast, known to disrupt hormones, PCBs, which are, you know, pesticides, sealants, cements, dioxins. So here's a place that you could get dioxin. You know those white coffee filters? You know, they use dioxin to bleach those. It's in bleach. So you don't want to use white coffee filters. You want to use the brown, you know, coffee filters, so you won't get dioxin. Teflon, Gore-Tex, okay, those are endocrine disrupting chemicals. So you never want to get Teflon coated cookware because that stuff, yeah, leaches in there.
Would that be like the same as like Teflon? Because that's like that used to be a pretty popular cookware that has a non-stick stuff as well.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. That would be something to look up, though. You could probably find that out. Okay. Yeah, if that's the same. But remember when Teflon non-stick pans first came out? You know, it was like all the rage. You know, like microwave ovens. You know, and then you notice that it started wearing off and it got into the food. Well, that got into us. That wasn't good for us. You know, phthalates, plastics, obviously, bisphenol A, we've already talked about that. DDE, we talked about that. Organophosphates, which you get in insecticides and pesticides. And flame retardants, which, you know, most of your new furniture, all your airplane seats are doused in that. So if you look at, and I'll go through this pretty fast, there was an EPA study that showed 100% of human fat biopsies contain styrene, okay? Wow. So styrene, you know, you get that from like styrofoam cups, you know, so you drink hot things so you want to avoid that if you can. We've all done it. We've all drank out of them. So I try and, like, if I'm going on a trip and I know I'm going to stop for coffee, I bring my own stainless steel mug. You know, I don't want to drink out of their styrofoam cups. I take that wherever I go on trips. Let's see. Dioxin, 100% contain dioxin. You get it in bleach, plastic, tampons, white tampons, herbicides, cigarette smoke. It's, you know, and it's a carcinogen. It can cause deformities, thyroid problems, immune disorders. 100% contains xylene, which you get from gasoline, glues, you know, when you glue something, you know, and you smell it, you're smelling xylene. Agricultural chemicals. Xylene affects the brain and can cause headaches, you know, so when they do the glue sniffing, xylene is one of the things they're getting, you know, so you don't want to, I mean, who'd want to do that? I wouldn't. But.
Is that why, like, they put that claim on tampons about the toxic shock syndrome?
Yeah.
It's because of that?
I think that's one reason, yeah. I don't think they ever really quite knew exactly what caused it, but I think this is certainly could be one of the reasons. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, restaurant deodorizers. You know, when you go into a restaurant and you smell that stuff, that's not good for you. You know, and that stuff is fat soluble, so it gets inside of you. And we can't avoid we just can't avoid all of it. So one of the things you never want to do is use deodorizers, you know, those room deodorizers. Mm-hmm. That stuff's toxic, okay? Never use that, ever, anywhere. So why do women have 9 times more autoimmune issues than men? Because most toxins are attracted to estrogen receptors, which women are loaded with estrogen receptors, exactly. You know? So that's the reason, okay? Or that's one big reason. And this is out of a book that I read a couple years ago called You Can Fix Your Brain, which is, a lot of that was on autoimmune issues. It's astounding that the number of young men I see with low testosterone and low sex drive, much of this dysfunction comes from toxicity, poor diet, and stress. I mean, I've seen like 35-year-olds that have, you know, don't have much of a sex drive. And I mean, I'm 69. When I was 35, I thought, I mean, I never thought, what's the matter with me anyway, man? That's pretty powerful, you know, and I'm going, how can a 35-year-old not have a sex drive? You know, I don't get it, but, you know, it happens. So males diagnosed with infertility should check their levels of toxicity. Another toxin is GMO corn. The Bt toxin is designed to open up the stomachs of the insects which eat it. There's a doctor in Quebec who found that Bt toxin in the blood of pregnant women and their babies, as well as non-pregnant women. So you know, we want to try and avoid, you know, eat as much organic as we can.
Is that in all corn?
It's in a lot of corn. I mean, I don't know if it's in all corn, but corn that's grown with, you know, it's GMO and grown with a lot of pesticides.
If it's organic, it doesn't have it unless it got it from a neighboring farm.
Yeah. Roundup herbicide has been found in all non-organic oat products. And I found that out from a guy who does testing in a lab. I had a conversation with him, the CFO of a lab that does a lot of lab testing for chemicals. He said Quaker Oats is full of Roundup. You never want to buy non-organic oats. I don't think you should eat oatmeal for breakfast anyway, regardless of what the oatmeal people say. So granola bars, full of it.
Why don't you think it's okay to eat that for breakfast?
I just don't think you should eat breakfast, period.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're going to intermittent.
Yeah. I mean, I just, you know, and then oats have, you know, a form of gluten in it, which a lot of people are intolerant to. And
yeah.
Okay. Scientists speculate that Roundup herbicide may lead to autoimmune disease, food intolerance, and cognitive problems and learning disorders in newborns. I don't know if we prove that at this point, but it can't be good for you. So, according to an article in a 2015 edition of the journal Neurotoxicology, which I used to quote all the time on my radio show when I was doing that, Roundup residue in foods can accumulate and lead to Parkinson's, disruption of neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine. So, the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, March 5th, 2015, said the following by medical researcher Leonardo Trezande in a paper on hormone and endocrine disruptors. Toxic exposure can come through the following chemicals. Pharmaceuticals, okay? Now this is a physician who's doing this research. Industrial solvents, personal care products, so, you know, makeup, you know, all the things that we use. Lipstick, aluminum can linings, plasticizers, and pesticides and environmental pollutants. Here he is. Looks like he's about a sophomore in college. So he describes the epidemic of biological dysfunction from environmental toxicity as supported by a substantial mountain of human and laboratory evidence, and that's true. It is supported. So these are pharmaceuticals that can cause deafness. Now, you know, I see a lot of people that are my age or even younger wearing hearing aids, and I'm not, you know, criticizing them, I'm not judging them. But I mean, you know, our hearing, is that something that should just go? I mean, but look at, these are the things that can cause it. Aminoglycoside antibiotics, anti-malarial drugs, which we don't have a lot of issue here. Lasix, a lot of people take Lasix, you know. Chemotherapeutic drugs, industrial solvents, and nitriles can cause a loss of hearing. Many air fresheners employ carcinogens and volatile organic compounds. A Natural Resource Defense Council study of 13 household air fresheners found that most products contain chemicals that can aggravate asthma and affect reproductive development. So never use air fresheners. You know, I will not have them in my house ever. I haven't used them ever. I don't. They're toxic.
Even the ozone ones, or?
Well, ozone's different. You know, we're talking about some of these really natural air.
Okay.
These are just, you know, your typical chemical air fresheners that advertise on TV a lot.
Yeah.
You know, they plug it into the wall and the dog starts wagging its tail and everybody's happy.
So you just have to pick better products to, if you have an issue that you need it for.
Yeah, you need to pick something that's not chemically based. Yeah.
Essential oils.
What? Yeah, essential oils, like diffuse essential oils. Yeah, that's a good strategy. So toxicity increases the allostatic load on the body. Does anybody know what this means, allostatic load? Okay, so the allostatic load is how many problems can the body handle before it breaks down? So chemical toxicity would be one. Okay, one thing. What are some other things that increase the allostatic load on the body?
Stress.
Stress, yeah. What else? What kind of clinic are we in here? Chiropractic clinic, so subluxations, you know. You know, thing that I adjust, that increases the allostatic load. So stress, toxicity, poor diet,
Hormone
imbalances, lack of exercise,
Lack of sleep.
Okay, the adjustment would actually decrease it.
Yeah, it decreases. So you don't want to increase it.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to increase it.
Right.
So what happens is you know, your body can only handle so much stuff before it breaks down. And a good example of that is I have a book in the back called The Paleocardiologist, and it was written by a guy. He actually is a cardiologist who married a chiropractor, and she basically had a lot of influence on how he thinks. And his father was a cardiologist, and his father started getting sick at a fairly young age, like in his 50s, and died early. And he wanted to find out, and his father, he found out that a hospital is one of those toxic places that you can work. Yep. And so what happened is his father, you know, he's exposed to a lot of toxicity and the allostatic load just increased. And then one day his father started getting symptoms that he never had before. And that's what happens when the allostatic load in a body gets too high, is you start developing symptoms that you can't explain, okay? So we want to decrease the allostatic load. So, you know, we'll talk about how to do that here in a minute. So here's some safe and simple steps that families can take to limit their exposure. So you never want to microwave plastic, because you'll guarantee you're going to get bisphenol A in your food, okay? So you never want to do that. You don't want to microwave much anyway, but never plastic.
What about if if you put one of those lids over the top of your food that's plastic, is that bad too?
Is it when you store it?
No,
When you microwave.
when you microwave it so that it doesn't explode all over the microwave.
Keeps it clean.
I wouldn't do that.
Oh, okay,
I mean, I would put something over it,
Paper
but not
towel.
plastic. Maybe
yeah.
maybe a towel or something.
Yeah.
We always put paper towels.
You know, avoid eating from or you know, consuming things from aluminum cans. That's even hard for me sometimes, but I don't do it a lot. Eating as much organic as you can, okay? We don't eat all organic in our household, but we eat a lot of organic. If you can get in a far infrared sauna, that detoxifies you from the inside out.
What's the foreign?
Well, it's a sauna that actually causes the inside of your body to heat up and release chemicals, and you sweat it out.
Is that like one of those hot saunas that you like?
Well, it's different than that. Yeah, it's still different.
Is it like at the gym I go to? They have a bed and it has light and heat and all of that in there. Is that the? I think it's
Maybe
infrared.
ask them if it's far infrared. If it is, then that would work. I know a lot of people that have these at home. And you can get them. I think you can get one for about $1,200 or something like that. Here's another thing you can do: eat cruciferous vegetables daily. Everybody know what cruciferous vegetables are?
Yeah, broccoli,
Broccoli,
cauliflower,
cabbage.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. Yeah, we eat those all the time at our house. Why do they help? Why do cruciferous vegetables help? Anybody know?
Scrape the intestines, clearing out a lot of bacteria that could be overgrown in your intestinal
Well,
tract.
they do add a lot of bulk, which is good.
A lot of fiber.
Yeah, a lot of fiber, but that's not the reason. They're very high in sulfur-containing biomolecules, which are really, really important for phase 1 and phase 2 liver detoxification.
Oh, okay.
They're really, really high in that. So we eat a lot of Brussels sprouts, asparagus. I mean, all this stuff at our house all the time. Also, you want to use personal care products that do not contain a lot of chemicals, or just simply air out your home as much as you can and remove some of the chemical dust that accumulates around the house. So, I mean, I know that we can't get away from all. We just can't. So do what you can is what I'm going to say. Now here's some tests that will help determine the level of toxicity. My favorite is the Great Plains Lab toxicity test. It tests for 173 industrial pollutants from a single urine sample. It's pretty good, okay? Great Plains glyphosate tests, again, tests for the amount of glyphosate in your body. Organic acid testing is a great test. You get 76 markers, and it can really tell you how well your body is able to detoxify. It tells you a lot about what's going on with your gut bacteria, neurotransmitter levels, and it's the only, let's see, this particular organic acid test for oxalates, which are highly correlated with many chronic illnesses. So this is also a urine test. It's not a blood test. So these are some tests that I do in my office. This test is like $300, and so for $300 you can find out what this is like. 140 for the glyphosate test. The organic acid test it's a more of a pricey test. It's over $500, but the amount of information you get is pretty amazing. So those are some things that can really make a difference in terms of figuring out, how much bisphenol A do you have? Well, that test would tell you, how much plasticizer do you have in your body, and so then you can go about trying to change some things and detoxify yourself, and that could make a big difference in your health. So this is what I have. These are some of the tests that I do. Does anybody have any questions about what I've gone over tonight? Yes.
So you're saying that a simple urine test can find out all these things?
Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just peeing into a cup and sending it off. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot different than the dipstick, you know, that you're normally used to. You can find an awful lot of information from urine. A lot. Probably as much or more from urine as you can from blood. Anybody else? Terry?
With infrared, it said far infrared. What's the difference? What's
It's just
far?
it's just a different kind of infrared.
A certain
Yeah.
kind of infrared
Yeah.
test?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mike?
What about, what do I say, plastic or PEX tubing for water line in your house?
Yeah, you're probably getting some chemicals in that.
There's
Probably
some-
some.
What would be the best thing to put your water in? Copper?
That's a good question. The problem with copper is that it gets bad over time, you know, because we had copper tubing in our houses and we've had to replace a lot of it. But it's hard. I mean,
So what are you replacing it with?
that's a good question. I don't know.
Water filter.
What's that?
Get a good water filter. That's probably.
Well, yeah, but you ain't gonna filter out the poly, whatever it was. here.
Polycarbonate,
Yeah.
PVC. So what we do is we just bring home the Kangen water and that's what we consume. We don't really consume.
Well, what about with showering with it and washing your clothes and all
Yeah.
that?
I know.
A
There's
filter for your shower.
You can get a filter and we have one.
Yeah, but that's not gonna take out that poly or that whatever it
Bisphenol A.
is. Yeah.
I don't know if it does or not, you know. And, you know, some things, Mike, we just may have to live with. you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
just
I've
do
done
the
that
best we
too.
can.
Yeah, you just do the best you can.
So what's the best thing to counteract all this stuff? You were gonna say what
Well,
solutions
first
do
of
you have?
all, I mean, eat cruciferous vegetables.
Right, no, I understood all that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, is there something specific that we need to be doing now to protect ourselves more from this, other than the things you mentioned about cruciferous vegetables and the, you know, is that what you meant when you said that you were going to address?
Yeah, those
Okay.
are the things. Now,
Okay.
another thing that's really good
Okay,
is exercise, especially in the summer where you sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Because sweating really does detoxify the body, which, you know, I think is a really good thing.
well, doesn't a sauna do that too?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
sauna does.
Okay, so if you don't have a far infrared, you can use your sauna.
Yeah, the far infrared is just a lot more efficient at
Oh.
detoxification. Yeah.
Lincoln's
Randy.
water is very hard. It's gotten a lot harder over the years, and it's not as safe as some think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're kind of stuck with it, so we gotta
It's
filter it to
gotten
do
a lot
what we
harder.
can with it.
That's why the king of water. is what
Yeah.
it's called.
It's a lot.
But it's not like you could go buy bottled water because then you have all this stuff in the bottle.
Yeah, I don't.
What do you do
yeah,
from that
I know,
either?
I know.
Well,
I
and we're
know.
using plastic bottles when we get water.
I know.
I know. And then
So
if you-
my thing is just don't keep it in the plastic very long. Like we take it home and put it in glass immediately.
Oh.
Yeah, but what if you are
Right there.
you're doing food storage and water storage for emergencies? Then you're.
You're putting it in plastic. You're gonna
You're
get.
putting it in plastic.
Is it going to matter what you do?
You
pretty
can
much.
find bottles like this with the BPA.
Use
on it.
glass. That's what
Yeah,
I have.
and if you
I don't have 30 glasses though.
If you,
Glass
if
container.
you store in plastic, you're gonna get plasticizers. I mean, it's just
It's just the way it is.
it's the way it is. Yeah. You know, I'm just a messenger.
I know. You're making
You're
me
the
think.
messenger.
That's the point. I'm like thinking of all the things that I do. It's like, I've downsized some of the things that you've talked about, and I do buy a lot more organic.
Yeah.
And especially vegetables and stuff, but even stuff that's, packaged, I'll buy the organic. So it's not like I haven't started doing that, but I'm like, wow, I still have a lot in my home.
I know, and it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy,
It's a
and you
it's a
can't
full-time
even
job.
you can't completely get away
No,
from it.
I don't think so.
Just do the best you
You
can.
do the best you can.
And
Like
never
even
let
if
go.
even
Never
like
let
if
go.
you go out, like I know some people that raise, pastured or organic chickens, but what do they do when they butcher them? They put them in plastic
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
And they sell them, like in plastic. I mean, you know, you can't get away from it. So you just do what you can. So you eat as much organic, eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, try and drink as clean a water as you can, exercise, sweat, you know, do things like that. Yeah,
Well,
Randy.
a lot of those people don't even think about any of this stuff. And it's a part-time job just to keep yourself healthy, because how many normal, well, I don't
It's
want
a
to say normal,
full-time job.
it's a part-time job, and then you come into Dr. Paul's, and it's like, I never knew any of this.
Yeah, and then you get depressed.
I think I think it's a full-time job.
You gotta end on a
honestly.
positive note.
Anymore.
Yeah.
So you do the best you can. I'm not here to you know, to beat up anybody, but I just want you to be aware of what's out there, and that if you have issues that, you know, nobody's been able to solve, you might want to get one of these tests and see if there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a woman that just came in the other day. She's from Beatrice, and she came to see me for functional medicine. Yeah, I'm going to recommend this test to her because of her issues. You know, I mean, she's been fatigued ever since she was a little kid. You know, she's never had any energy, so we need to find out why, and maybe this is one of the reasons. You know, so yeah, I mean, it is. You have to work at being healthy.
Right.
But it's worth it, because otherwise you're going to have to put up with being sick. You know, and I don't want to do that. You know, I just don't want to do that. So that's why I do these classes, so you guys can at least be aware of what's going on. Like you said, Randy, most people don't know this. That's why I do these classes, so I can at least educate people to be healthier.
So are they saying that pesticides over time in your body can lead to cancer?
Sure, they could. They accumulate and cause problems because they're fat soluble, and they accumulate in the fatty tissue of our body, and that's why you can urinate in a cup, and they can do all these tests on it. You know, so yeah, they're a lot of the pesticides are fat soluble. And why are they fat soluble? Because when you spray it on your crops, you don't want the rain to wash it off.
Okay.
You want them to stay on there, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I can understand that, you know? I can understand why they would do that. But it hurts us, you know?
You mentioned, okay, tuna fish oil, and what other supplements were you mentioning that would help with this?
Well, tuna oil, the omega-3 fatty acid
Right.
has DHA,
Okay,
which is important for brain function,
okay,
and plasticizers down-regulate the DHA in your brain. Okay, they interfere with it. That's what I was saying before.
okay, thank you.
Is it a specific omega-3 or?
Well, just a good one.
One.
You know, when you get a good omega-3. I like ours, but you know, there's some other good ones out there. You go to my friend Dr. Lynn's office, he'll tell you he has the best one, you know. So,
Well, I do
what can you say?
one that's online. That's a whole food. Most of it's become organic. I didn't probably start that way, but most of it's getting organic now. So, and they do. I've been researching it. They get all theirs from. You know, they don't outsource from any other countries, and then so the higher standards of the organics is better here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's like I get all my herbs from Australia, where they're tested like with the same standards that our FDA tests our drugs, so you know exactly what you're getting. So I don't hardly have any herbs that aren't from Australia for that reason. Okay, but I'm going to do a talk on herbs, you know, coming up in about 3. It's in March, isn't it? Is it in March?
Is that the one at Natural Grocers? Is that,
Oh yeah, it's one at National. Let's see.
what's the next one there?
Oh yeah, it's understanding. It's the 7th of March. Understanding herbs and their role in health and disease. I'm gonna do that talk.
You have one of those coming up, right, for February?
Yeah. So that's in a month from now. We're gonna do that talk. So if you want to learn about herbs, and one of the things I'm going to talk about in that class is the problem with all the fakery in herbal products out there. you know, the fake honey. I mean, we have fake honey, fake olive oil. Well, that happens in herbal products too. So I'm going to talk about that and what you need to watch for. So that's in a month. Okay, that'll be in a month. All right. Any other questions?